getting up early, you're cutting off drinking or cut it off completely. You aren't just eating a bunch of junk all the time. It's hard. I know this from experience. It's really hard, especially at this age, because I'm 29, to be that person doing it. And it's like most people aren't. And it's like you sometimes get to the point where you're tired of being the front, and I say this respectfully,
Yeah.
being the front runner, where it's like I'm the one who, and so many people around you have the potential. You
Yep.
see it, but they're not doing those extra things. Or so many people you see, they start and then they stop. All right, y'all, what's going on? It is your boy Easy Bake Oven. What's up, y'all? So today it's a little different. All right, now, yeah, I used to hear ads run through my stuff for other people. All right, this is probably the first real time the ad is for me. All right, so P.S.A. Prodigy Sport Advantage Stations has expanded far beyond just the podcast. It is now a writing service. All right, and at that, a ghostwriting service. So we do it anonymously and take care of your needs. All right, homework assistant, product and profile descriptions, grant writing, resumes, cover letters, templates, books, ghostwriter book too. Anything you can think of, articles, all that good stuff. PSA, the Ghostwriter Solution, can do it. So go over to PSAthepodcast.com and you can see all the services there with all their descriptions. Okay, because I know I missed some. And also you can reach out to me at theprodigyperspective@gmail.com and we can take care of all of that for you too. Peace. What's going on, y'all? It is another great week. Another hot fire Zoom episode, Zoom StreamYard episode. I don't rock with Zoom. StreamYard is the way to go, as we see. The Zoom don't let you do all the stuff that they let you do here at StreamYard. Now, I'm not sponsored by StreamYard yet, but we know we got to speed into existence. So there's that. Can y'all believe we're getting closer and closer to the end of not only just the year in general, the end of a season? So, like I said, we're in November now. Can you believe that? Thanksgiving is coming up. Everybody knows Thanksgiving is my favorite holiday. And we have a Thanksgiving special episode coming up soon as well. So that'll be good. Also, vlogging, that's been going good. You know, just be starting that and then seeing the feedback from that has been good. People telling me I should have been vlogging, but it is what it is. We're here now. All right, y'all. So let's first get into this week's meme. I have a great guest today, but I got to get into the meme and I got a few house things to get in order. So, meme for this week. The potential is there. You just need to activate it. Let this be reassurance for anybody who feels like maybe, you know, I don't know where to go, what to do. Just know you have the potential. It's there. We just need to unlock it and we need to activate it. And I have a guest today who's going to like really get into that. So let's get into this week's inspiration. So for this week, my inspiration comes from a few different areas. For some reason, we're talking about heroic potential today. And the inspiration for me, because my inspiration is all over the place. My mind is a little, wacky, but in a good way. And when I hear heroic, I instantly thought, especially the topic we're going to get into today, I instantly thought about the Justice League. And I instantly thought about the Incredibles. I just thought about like a group of superheroes. And I'm going to get more in depth in that when I do finally introduce the guest. Then from James 1:5, if any of you lacks wisdom, you should ask a God who gives generously to all without finding fault, and it will be given to you. So I'm all about seeking wisdom. Again, wisdom, good. All wisdom is not good wisdom. We're hopefully going to get into that in today's episode as well. And of course, my guest and all of his many accomplishments. So before we finally introduce him, let me go through and get into everyone's favorite segment, which is Happy Hour. So real quick, something I want to talk about. I've been getting too wrapped up in toxic television. You know, obviously read like my Bible plan that I have every day, and then I read the actual Bible itself every day. But for many months and years, at one point, I was reading that and another book to go along with it, and I've actually fallen off of that completely. And it didn't really hit me until the other day, like, you're not reading no books anymore. Like you have your, but I want to read something else. And I want to get into the point where I read a book a month as well. And I'm getting back into that for the month of November. And so that's going to be pretty good with that. So I'm excited for y'all to see how that goes. But the thing with toxic television, and not just to say it's always those, those violent shows, but sometimes some of these shows and TV shows, even the scripted ones, it's like your brain is just oozing out the side of your ears at times. And I need to get back to the point where we cut that down, and YouTube as well. I think we forget about that. We think we just so caught up in toxic TV, but I mean, technically, you can watch YouTube on TV. And on top of that, a lot of these vloggers and a lot of these podcasts you watch are kind of modeled like television shows. And if they're kind of talking about the same toxic things, and you can just kind of get wrapped up in it, and it just is a lot. So my suggestion to everybody this week is we need to get off the toxic TV for a little while, and some shows completely, and get back to reading on a regular basis, just because even if it's a fictional story, just getting our brains back to reading, maybe if you like, well, I need the toxicity, they have toxic books. So go get you a book. I'd rather you read it than just watch it. So, I mean, it's still toxic, but at least, you're working some different nerves and muscles that, haven't been worked properly in a while. So, I'm all about working smart and not hard. All right, so now that's the happy hour today. We kept it real short. So I have a guest today. He has a lot to unpack. It's going to be good. It's going to be in depth. Definitely feel as though you're going to leave feeling motivated and inspired to do more this week. I mean, hopefully all the weeks, but especially this week. All right, so let me go ahead and introduce my guest. Finally, what is going on?
Izzy, good to see you. Getting me fired up before we even get going.
Good. I love to hear that. That's good news because it's a little early, but we got it going on. So obviously I can see your name and I know your name, but for the audio people, can you tell the people what's your name, where are you from, and where do you live currently?
Brian Johnson. I'm the founder and CEO of a company called Heroic Public Benefit Corporation, author of a book called Arete, Activate Your Heroic Potential, and I'm in the country outside of Austin. You might hear a couple of kids screaming. They're having an active morning. And good to see you, man.
Good to see you. Well, so you're in Austin, so you're not far. I'm in Houston, so we're not far from each other at all. And this is the second person. Last week, I think she was originally from Austin. She lives in LA. So we're getting the Austin thing going. Okay, so you told people what it is that you do. Tell people more about like and when I say foundation, I don't mean literal foundation, but tell the people more about like the book itself and all of what you do just in general so that they,
Yeah, I mean, the book, we'll go there first. So the book is called Arete, and it's the one-word answer. The ancient Greek philosophers like Aristotle, Plato, Socrates, and the Stoic philosophers like Aurelius and Epictetus and Seneca would give you on how to live a good life. Literally, single-word answer, Arete. So we translate the word Arete as virtue or excellence, but it has a deeper meaning, something closer to being your best self moment to moment to moment. So the way I describe it is, look, if you're capable of being this and you're actually being this, and there's a gap between who you could have been and who you were, it's in that gap in which regret, anxiety, disillusionment, depression exists. It's more nuanced than that, but that's the basic idea. And then if you close that gap and you express the best version of yourself by living with Arete, you experience a deep sense of joy and meaning and purpose. It doesn't mean life's easy, but in that moment, you feel great. And if you can string enough of those moments together, you can create a great life. That's the basic idea of the book, taking that warm and fuzzy idea and operationalizing it and making it really practical so we can go out and do what we're here to do. And as per the subtitle of the book, activate your heroic potential, which I know is a theme of our chat today, that we can talk about what that means, why I described it like that.
Okay, good stuff. Which is actually the next question. So, what does it mean to activate your heroic potential and how can one achieve it? So, obviously, reading the book for sure, which we're going to dive more into that. But if you could just answer it in short, seeking wisdom, as you kind of briefly discussed, and trying to close in that gap. But what else could you say could help to do that as well?
Yeah, well, let me frame up what the word activate means, because it means something very specific for me. So activation energy is a scientific term. So if you want to boil water, for example, you need to get the water up to a very specific temperature, 212 degrees.
Right.
Nothing happens below that. Now, when you get to that point, one thing becomes another thing. Now, if you want to create a fire, you need to get it up to 451 degrees of heat. That's when paper ignites. So we need to show up with a level of intensity. And I love your show notes and just who you are and how you're showing up and striving to get people out of kind of the matrix of conformity into no, show up, have an intensity in life. So that's the idea with activation. We have 7 objectives in the book we can talk about.
We
But
will.
the first most important thing is show up like you mean it.
Yeah.
This isn't a dress rehearsal, dust the Cheetos off if you got them on your sweatshirt, and like turn off the YouTube, as you were saying, all the toxic shows, the obsessive, social feeds, and figure out what you want to do with your life and then go do it. And when you do that, you have the opportunity, from my vantage point, to be heroic. I've tattooed my body with Arate and with heroic. I'm all in on both of those things, and we can talk details on how to do it. But the first most important thing is wake up, show up with a level of intensity, and let's get your potential activated.
Okay, good stuff. So I just want to kind of just so I understand what's going on. Basically, talking about showing up 212 degrees Fahrenheit. We all know I hope you will know that's the boiling point for water. But I want to add something. This may be we might take it a little deep, a little early, but like 212 is the boiling point. That's not 210. That's not 211.5. It's 212. So I think a lot of times we, especially as my age range, and just even people I know, I'm of course, this is for this age range, but people that I know in general, I think some of them get so close to where they want to get and they just stop there. Like I know somebody, they wanted to lose 50 pounds. They lost 30. I'm like, okay, I'm going to stop here. Or, I got off one medication, but I still am on another one. Well, you did good. Let's keep going. Let's not stop there. And it's sometimes I think people just get so caught up in just like, well, I made a lot of major progress. I can stop here. No, you said you want abs. Yes, you lost weight. Great. And you see an ab or two form when you wake up in the morning, but you said you wanted 6-pack abs. So you are not done. So I think that a lot of times we stop a little too early, and which then transitions to the next question. So what does it mean to know the ultimate game of life, and how can one excel at it starting today?
Yeah, so then I juxtapose, and this is a 2,500-year-old challenge. So, the ancient Greeks talk about Hercules making a choice. All the great wisdom traditions talk about the battle between the best within yourself and the less than awesome within yourself, right? But the ultimate game, as I see it, is to be your best, most heroic self. But we've been seduced by society to go after fame, wealth, and hotness. Now, there's nothing wrong with those things per se, but we want those to be byproducts of you living a good life. Otherwise, you might get to the top of the mountain and realize you went up the wrong mountain. David Brooks wrote a book called The Second Mountain, in which he talks about that. Stephen Covey, who's one of my inspirations, old school 7 habits of highly effective people. He says you can climb up a ladder, get to the top rung, and then look around and realize you put it up against the wrong wall. So again, one of the things I loved about learning more about you is your desire to help people play the right game and not conform. So fame, wealth, and hotness, fine. But if you're predominantly going after them, you will not be as happy as people who are striving to be better human beings, deepening personal relationships, and making a contribution. Now, the good news is when you pursue those things, the ultimate game, you tend to win more of the other games. And in the book, I talk about my son who wants to be a grandmaster in chess. He's only 11. But we use that game to play the ultimate game, and he happens to be very good at chess, in part because he's eating, moving, sleeping, breathing, and focusing his mind in the ways he needs to in order to show up powerfully at a chessboard. So whatever you're doing, know there's a bigger game that if you play that well, you're more likely to win all the other things.
Absolutely. The ultimate game in life, it starts with you got to master, and it just kind of goes back to the theory I tell you all the time. Before you can master that big thing, you got to master the little things first. And if you can't show up in those little things, how can you be there, for the big stuff? I tell people all the time, people who are content creators, we can make it simple for people to get it. If you can't show up consistently with 3 viewers, how can you show up with 3 million? So people think, oh, well, I'll just get it when the time. No, you won't. That's not how that works. You have to be consistent with the little to get the good, the big. All right. So now I have a few words, and there's no right or wrong answer, and I want you to tell me the first thing that comes to mind. Are you ready?
Let's do it.
All right. So when you hear the word potential, what's the first thing that comes to mind?
You and your potential. And you've got infinite heroic potential is what I immediately think.
All right. What about wisdom?
I have a second thought on your prior question. Your need to actualize your potential is a fundamental need. So Abraham Maslow came up with the hierarchy of needs you might have heard of.
Yeah,
You know,
I
you
know.
get the basic setup, but he says you get to a point where your need to actualize your potential is as real and fundamental as your need to breathe. So anyone who is here today has enough of the material resources, that aching you feel to be better, to be the hero of your own story is real. It's fundamental. And to the extent you allow gaps to show up in your life, you're not going to be good. And that's a good thing. It's a sign that you're capable of more. Anyway, part two of your first question, bring me back to your second one.
Wisdom.
Wisdom. So wisdom is the first of the four cardinal virtues that all ancient wisdom traditions talk about. It's the root of the word philosopher. So I consider myself a philosopher in the etymological sense. So are you. A philosopher is a lover of wisdom. Wisdom is knowledge of life. When you are wise, you know what to do in any given situation. That's what arises for me.
All right. And then the last word, simple, heroic.
Heroic, baby. So I look down, I see that on my arm. I'm kind of an etymology nerd. I like the origin story behind words. I also think of the Justice League. I think of superheroes, but I think of the ancient Greeks. They came up with the word for hero. And when they came up with the word, they didn't name it after a tough guy or killer of bad guy. The word hero means protector. So it's very important for me to rebrand what it means to be heroic. It isn't about the men and women on the fields or the courts or whatever, or the celebrities per se. It's about us stepping up, being heroic. So a hero is a protector. A hero has strength for two, and they're willing to do the hard work to have the strength for two. And these days, they're not pulling the bed covers over their head and trying to avoid life's problems and complaining about them. They're heading to the front lines. And their secret weapon, very importantly, the hero's secret weapon is love. We dedicate our lives to something bigger than ourselves. We're trying to do our best in service to our families, our communities, and the world. That's the source of all the courage and discipline that we need to show up and, again, activate our true potential.
You own the money because let me get into the definitions, but the next segment we write on it. So the definition that I got from dictionary.com: potential, having or showing the capacity to become or develop into something in the future. Wisdom, the quality of having experience, knowledge, and good judgment, the quality of being wise. And then heroic, behavior or talk that is bold or dramatic, especially excessive or unexpectedly so. Now, we know words have multiple meanings, but I feel like the one you described as well as this one, they still correlate. And like you said, a protector, in most cases, you're going to be bold or speak out against things that aren't right. Or you know what I'm saying? It's all about justice.
Well, and they're going to do the hard work. So I got on my wall, you can't see him, but I got Jesus in the upper left. So I was raised Catholic school 12 years. And you were talking about you reading from the Bible. We'll open up to the parable of the wise and foolish builders. And what do you learn? You learn that if you follow Jesus's philosophy, then when the storms come, you built your house on a solid rock of foundation. If you don't, and again, to be blunt, if you're too afraid or too lazy to do the things you know you should do, when the storms come, whether it's COVID or economic challenges or relationship challenges, you're blown away and your life's a circus. But it doesn't need to be so hard. Pay attention to your philosophy, whether it's found in the Bible or in ancient Stoicism or whatever it is for you, and live it today. That's wisdom and discipline. I just felt the need to make that connection as I answer your questions and think back to your own personal work, and my work is, frankly, I don't care what your chosen philosophical or religious belief is. My thing is, are you living it? And we have devout Christians, devout Muslims, rabbis, everyone from every faith who find inspiration in what we're doing because we're saying the same thing. All great leaders said the same thing. Be your best self, live with virtue, serve something bigger than yourself, and boom, you'll experience the joy you're looking for.
All right, good stuff. Let's go into the next segment, which is, what does this have to do with mental health? All right, so now you've talked about love, so which was my next question. So how does love, you briefly discussed, but how does love contribute to personal growth and well-being?
Well, some scientists say that love is happiness, full stop. That demonstrating and taking the time to connect with yourself, starting with yourself and self-compassion, and then giving that to others, is huge. But I gave a keynote talk on Mental Health Day for a large organization, and one of the things I talked about was invisible disabilities. And 80% of us are struggling from anxiety, depression, etc. So the most important, and I told it, I put up a picture of my family 25 years ago. I had more hair, less gray whiskers, but it was a solid middle class family up in a church, celebrating a special day. My sister got married.
Mhm.
I got 3 sisters and a brother, right? But what you don't see when you look at the picture was my dad was struggling with alcoholism and depression. So was my brother. I had struggled with depression a year and a half before, wanted to end my own life 25 plus years ago. And so we're struggling. When I think of mental health, I think of invisible struggling. You know what I mean? If someone's in a wheelchair, okay, they're disabled in that way. But those of us who are struggling emotionally and psychologically may feel that we're alone. And it's really, really important to know you're not alone. A, we're all suffering in our own ways at different times. And B, you can do something about it. And again, why I'm excited to be with you here is let's talk about what you can do. But you got to know you're not alone. You got to know you can do something about it. And then you got to step up and do the
Yeah,
work
definitely.
to close the gap.
Absolutely. And I think a lot of times people, they are so caught, and that's the issue a lot of times with people wanting to start things. I always relate it to content creating because we live in the world of content creating now. And and that is probably the teacher in me taking those deep, in-depth philosophical, views and trying to simplify them so people get it. But a lot of times people don't know just how to just start. They're afraid to start because they know it's going to be a long, dark road at times. It's like peaks and valleys, ebbs and flows. So it's gonna be up and down, and people just aren't ready for the journey. So there's like, well, I just won't start. But then it's like, I'd rather try and fail than not to try at all. That's just me. Okay, so quick question. We've been pretty deep already, but now I just have a simple question. So living away from the hustle and bustle in Austin, Texas, compared to Dallas, compared to Houston, Austin is, the slower one. I've even had friends, because I'm from St. Louis, who've moved to Austin saying that they didn't want to live in Houston or Dallas because it's too much going on. So how does this environment contribute to your mental health and just overall well-being?
Dude, I live on the country. I'm 30 minutes. Our nearest kind of thing was, all right, 35 minutes from Whole Foods, go in there every once a week, but we're out in the country. So we're kind of really quiet. I've got an 11-year-old, a 6-year-old. My wife's into this stuff. And we're, again, reading your show notes, we're deliberately iconoclastic and, have fun creating our ideal lives, which is very different than how most people live their lives. But I prioritize things like my family. I prioritize things like getting a good night of sleep. I'll put in 12, 13 hours a day, but I'm also going to be in bed for 9 to 10 hours, get my 8.5 hours of sleep. That's my superpower. And what I didn't do when I was struggling, by the way, I did none of the basic fundamentals. But we love it out here. Again, but each of us needs to find our own idiosyncratic expression. Some people, like, you may love being in Houston, you may love being in New York City or wherever you are, Chicago, whatever, big cities that got a lot going on. Perfect. But within that environment, how do you create the structures such that your best self shows up more consistently? And the reality is, in a society that has as many unhealthy people as ours, you need to do what you're encouraging people to do, which is step back just an inch and look at it and say, all right, what am I going to do and what am I not going to do to create my life on my terms? And then just get at it. Like you said, don't wait for the perfect life. Just start incrementally building momentum so you can create a life of more and more meaning and purpose, etc.
Now, before I move into the notes with mental health, I do have to say I was actually watching a YouTube video yesterday. This girl, she's a YouTuber. Her name is Sunray. She was talking about, we want the big thing. We want the abundance. We want the overflow. We want all these wonderful things. But if you don't have a structure in place for when those things come, which is why, kind of correlate what I said earlier. If you can't handle the 3 people, how are you going to handle the 3 million? So if you want this big grand life and you want everything, you just wake up and everything is just drastically changed. If that were to happen, would you be able to sustain it? No. And that's the problem people are missing out on. And so that's why you have to find kind of your structure, your area where you can advance and just start here and just go from there. Okay, so now with mental health and how does this relate? So the first one is identity and self-worth, says the challenges many millennial men face identifying their struggles, and this is hard for them to shift into societal roles and expectations. Personal growth allows these men to cultivate self-worth based on their individual strengths and passions. The journey of personality and social psychology found that individuals who felt they were living up to their ideals had higher self-esteem and well-being. The second one is coping with stress and anxiety. External pressures, including financial instability and the recession or the digital age's rapid technological shifts, can heighten anxiety. Harnessing personal potential can equip young men with tools to navigate stress. The American Psychological Association reports that engaging in meaningful activities, a reflection of personal growth, can act as a buffer against stress. So, when it comes to stress and when it comes to meaningful activities, what I mentioned earlier about reading and getting back into books and not just books. I mean, if you want to go play basketball at the YMCA, that's meaningful to you. You know what I'm saying? And you just have to find what's meaningful to you and to make sure you do that. And that's what people don't know how to do. And I've noticed the gap, especially in previous generations compared to mine, so like my parents, I know they were raised, they weren't raised to do what you love. They were raised to get a job with benefits, take care of your family. And if you did that, you won. But they've always found themselves, not satisfied. And then if they felt they were unsatisfied, it was, oh, I'm being selfish. I'm not thankful, or I'm not grateful for where I'm at now. So, being where you are now, especially in life, you mentioned a few of your influences and some of your inspirations, but who have been some of your most influential mentors or collaborators, and how have they impacted your views on your mental health?
Yeah, I mean, there's so much you talked about in that. We can talk about confidence and what that actually means, but I'll hold that for a second. So my greatest influence is a guy on my wall back there named Phil Stutz. So Phil Stutz is my coach, spiritual father. He's featured in Jonah Hill's documentary on Netflix called Stutz. Really great film if you're into talking about these ideas in a funny, playful, yet really wise and grounded way. Stutz is a great documentary. Again, check it out on Netflix. He and I have connected 400 times over the last nearly 8 years now in one-on-one sessions talking about these ideas. He's by far my deepest inspiration. I'll actually use that as a segue back to confidence. So one of the things that he taught me is called emotional stamina. Right? So he uses this phrase, emotional stamina. I call it anti-fragile confidence. But the basic idea is, he said to me after one of our early sessions, he complimented me and said, you have a lot of it. I'm like, well, what is that? I have no idea what emotional stamina is, Mm-hmm. He's like, it's your ability to tolerate a lot of pain, a lot of uncertainty, and just challenges in your life. And he said, the way that you cultivate emotional stamina, and I call it anti-fragile confidence, is the worse you feel, the more committed you are to your protocol.
Right.
Now, there's two important things there. First of all, it presupposes you have a protocol, that you know what you do when you're at your best. And we can talk about how to get clarity on that. And of course, that's what I do in the book and everything else. But you got to know who you are at your best. And then when you're getting your butt kicked, in those moments, rather than go spiral out and invite the circus to town and do all the stupid things we all do, if in that moment, instead, you double down on your protocol, and you eat, you move, you sleep, you breathe, you read the books, you play the basketball, you get the right night of sleep or whatever, and you don't do the negative stuff, then the things that used to hit you and make you break are the things that hit you and make you stronger, because they force you to work harder as a hero, becoming your best self. I call that anti-fragility. And confidence means intense trust. So if you want to have confidence in yourself, you have to trust yourself. The only way to trust yourself is to do what you say you will do. So if I didn't show up today for our scheduled time, or you didn't show up for our scheduled time, would I trust you? No, and I shouldn't have confidence in you. So if I tell myself or my kids or my spouse to do this, X, Y, and Z, and I don't, I shouldn't trust myself. I shouldn't have confidence in myself. I can't handle what life throws at me. Then you go back to Jesus. It's the foundation. Know what's important to you and do it. Then you build this trust. You get stronger. You're anti-fragile. You have a deep, grounded, earned sense of invincibility. And then life gets fun. And then literally, and you don't need to wait. When you get this even 1% or 2% better, you can change your life. And I've seen that in the people we've worked with, thousands and thousands of people, where it gets exciting, it gets fun again. And you realize, wait, I have more control than I thought. I don't need to go numb myself. And we all do it, whether it's binge eating or binge drinking or binge watching or whatever. But anyway, those are some thoughts on my influence, Phil Stutz, the protocol, and then building that true grounded anti-fragile confidence.
Well, I have to go. Well, I actually got another thing set up after this, but I do plan on going to the gym today. And sometimes I listen to music, sometimes I listen to YouTube, but I might have that video play when I go to the gym. Stutz, right? On Netflix.
Dude, yeah, check it out. You'll love it.
And that's what I'm saying. I like stuff that has a lot of, you use humor, which was the purpose of this podcast, using humor to discuss things that are, harder to discuss. I've noticed, I just found out, what was it, last week on Good Pods. I don't know if it's an app you've heard of, and they have thousands of podcasts. Either way, my podcast, out of the thousands of podcasts, got listed as number 66 for comedic interviews. So I was excited about that because you can see the style of this podcast. There's a lot of in-depth conversation. It's not just, cracking jokes all day, although it's a lot of that. But I just like the fact of having in-depth conversation in ways where you don't even realize you're learning. And that's why I was so successful as a teacher all those years, because I would give a lot of life lessons, but I will also take information and I was just a fun person in general. So it was able to get to them, and they weren't able to understand through my methodologies that some of the older teachers just couldn't do. And that's just how it is. Everybody's style is different, but everybody can find what works for them. And I know how to find what works for me. Which goes into the next part, which is same with the mental health stuff, connection and relationships. Building and maintaining meaningful relationships is a cornerstone of mental health. It says, however, societal expectations often discourage men from being vulnerable, passionate, or seeking help. It says, by delving into your own personal growth journeys, young millennial men can break down these barriers. And it says they can become more self-aware, making them more emotionally available in relationships. And then the fourth one is purpose and direction. Many young millennial men experience feelings of aimlessness or lack of purpose, especially in a world with numerous options and pathways, which we kind of talked about earlier. This can lead to existential anxiety, depression, or feeling of being stuck. Identifying and activating one's potential involves seeking purpose and direction, setting goals, pursuing passion, understanding one's core value. A clear sense of direction can significantly boost mental well-being, providing a foundation of motivation and fulfillment. So all this starts is with one step forward. Like I said, finding you that right book. I hear so many times people talk about books that change their lives. The book I've heard throughout my life that has changed people's lives the most that I heard was Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. That's a book that was written so long ago, and so many people to this day read it and it just changed their life. And so it's all about that. So this wasn't a planned question, but I'm going to ask it. How does it feel, we'll say 30, 40 years down the line, how does it feel to know, and then we're going to speak it over your life, that your book is going to be one of those books that people look at decades and centuries down the line and list as one of the books that changed their lives?
I mean, I've dedicated my life to being worthy of that. And so, fate will determine whether or not that's the case. But I've literally worked the last 25 years, as you know, half of it building and selling some businesses, the other half just grinding on ancient wisdom, modern science, and distilling those ideas into some stuff I created called Philosopher's Notes, etc. But I'm proud of the book, dude. And I hope it achieves something approximating that. I'm unapologetic in my ambition. I hope it catalyzes our movement with Heroic, a public benefit corporation, and the app that we have that translates it. But I'll tell you what, one of the things that was most inspiring for me was one of my friends who happens to be a military officer, left the book in his car, and his 11-year-old son found it on a weekend soccer tournament. and stayed up late on a Saturday night reading the first 100 pages of it. And I have goosebumps right now. I'm like, oh, shoot, there we go. Because what you're talking about here, the millennial generation and those younger, that's how we're going to change the world. You know, in a world that's as chaotic as ours is right now, we need more and more of us stepping up. So that's my number one hope, is whoever picks up the book gets at least one idea that can transform their lives. And however it's seen, you know, from a 30 or 40 or 50-year vantage point, I'm just hoping that whoever picks it up gets something out of it. And I hope a lot of people pick it up and get something out of it. And then it's, for me, it's today's the day. So I'm showing up, dude. I'm just doing my best to, Kobe Bryant comes to mind, by the way. When you were sharing all this stuff on fundamentals, one of my favorite all-time stories, and I share it in the book, is a friend of mine named Alan Stein, who's one of the world's leading peak performance mental toughness coaches, worked with Kobe Bryant at one of his camps. And he said, hey, Kobe, can I watch you at practice? This is when Kobe was at his peak, the unquestionable best player in the NBA. And Kobe says, yeah, no problem. Come, I'm practicing at 4:30. And Alan, my friend's like, well, 4:30, dude, we've got the camp at 4:30. He's like, 4:30 a.m. I'll see you there. Oh, okay, cool. His head explodes. All right, cool. I guess I'm showing up at 4:30 a.m. He walks into the gym all groggy, 4:30. Kobe's already drenched in sweat. And he watches him just hammer the most basic fundamental drills that he learned literally in the 4th grade, you know, but he's doing it with surgical precision. And he goes up to him afterwards and he says, Kobe, dude, what are you doing those drills? You're the best in the world. And Kobe laughs at him and says, why do you think I'm the best in the world, dude? And that commitment, the ferocious commitment to the absolute fundamentals, is again what I'm excited about. And it's a non-answer to your question, but that's my game. Is today's the day. We work with Navy SEALs and do a lot of stuff in that world. And you go through SEAL Hell Week, and then you get your trident. Then you're told you need to earn that every day. And that's how I try to show up. Is today's the day. Today's my Super Bowl, you know, and doing what I can to be here with you powerfully and with everybody else that I'm able to connect with. And then we'll see. We'll see what it looks like in the next. To your point, dude, I love your point you've made more than once. You don't count the number of people watching. You show up for whoever's there, and then you show up again and again and again. And the higher you get, the more committed you are to the most basic fundamentals. And you give that a long enough period of time, and magic can happen, right?
Pretty much. And I agree. It's just, like I said, it's just, even with that conversation about Kobe Bryant and the fundamentals, doing drills that a 4th grader would do. But like he said, I'm the best because I keep making sure I master the fundamentals. And that's a testament to, you may not have to get up at 4:30, but it's a testament to people to say, get up. You know what I'm saying? We spend too much time sleeping. And I actually had to check myself recently because I got too comfortable again being a full-time entrepreneur now. I got too comfortable waking up late, like around 9, 10. That's too late. I need to be up by 7 at the latest, like up. And I was just getting too comfortable. And even now I'm contemplating maybe even not 4:30, but maybe even getting up at like 6, 5, you know. And now it will depend. Like if I know I have an extremely busy morning, I will get up like at like 5:30 and go to the gym, get it out the way. But if in most cases, like I said, I'll just try to chill out, you know. But long story short, I'm all for getting it back up early, and hopefully somebody pick that up.
Let's go, dude. And then here's the thing you need to know. And then what I teach, again, we have a whole objective on making today a masterpiece. This morning started last night. So if you're up late, binge watching or drinking or whatever, you tell me how you're going to feel when you wake up this morning. So today started last night. So we walk people through an exercise where just imagine your ideal day. What would you do? How would you feel? How would you show up in your energy, your work, and your love? We call it the big 3. And again, each of us will be different. So I got up at 4:55 this morning after being in bed. Dude, I was in bed for 10 hours last night. I got 8 hours and 50 minutes of sleep. I went to bed after I tucked my kids in. I don't care what is on sports or what is on, you know, Netflix. What I care about is what I'm going to do when I wake up between 5 a.m. and 8:30, my first podcast I did this morning. Dude, I got more done. Phil Stutz, my coach, when I first worked with him, he said, dude, my clients get more done by the time you get up than you're going to do all week. They show up with a palpable sense of urgency, whether it's Kobe Bryant or Jonah Hill or Joaquin Phoenix or fill in the blank on all the people he's worked with. There's an urgency to life, dude. And there's that felt sense of activation. We're back to that. Right. 451, where are you? You don't boil water with lukewarm. You don't get to boiling with lukewarm water. You've got to turn up the heat. And your heat is different than mine. And I'm not saying anybody needs to go to bed at 7:45, although Tom Brady did. You want to know why Tom Brady was the best all time for as long as he was? He did the stuff we're talking about. Basic fundamentals that everybody else ignored. He's like, no. Those are my marginal gains. I'm going to aggregate them and I'm going to outperform everybody. These things matter, but only if you care. If you want mediocrity, which is the opposite of excellence, by the way, the opposite of mediocrity, you go like this. Here's the gap. And you're like, oh, man, I'm good enough right here. Yeah, how's that working for you? That's the gap. You know what I mean? Close it and you feel a joy. And then these things are not chores. When you do it right, they're not a pain in the butt. You're not complaining about them. No one could pay me to stay up late now because I know what it feels like to wake up early and to have creativity and this insight that I don't have when I do the things that I know don't work for me. 2,000 years ago, Seneca, the great Stoic, said, how much better to get to a place where doing what is best for you is what you most enjoy.
Right.
So all the things I'm talking about, Kobe, he wasn't complaining about getting up to the gym. He couldn't wait. Jordan, same thing. I mean, they're cut from the same cloth. Jerry Rice, same exact thing. He sets the all-time record for receiving yards on Sunday. What does he do on Monday morning? Shows up an hour before everybody else, just like he did every single time he showed up. Jerry Rice, every time he caught the football, he scored a touchdown. It was insane when he first did it. Caught the ball out pattern, supposed to give the ball back to whoever, bolts to the end zone. Everybody thinks this is insane. Weeks later, they're all doing it. So again, that intensity of the great ones may or may not be for us, but let's not pretend that kind of sort of meh is going to get it done, you know?
No, definitely. So now we didn't talk about a lot of good stuff today. So let's move to the next segment, which is one of my more famous ones. I challenge that. So with I challenge that, the purpose of this segment is to kind of challenge some things that we're talking about and to give the other perspective. So in case somebody may try to say, I agree with everything you're saying, but I feel like this. So the first question is, before we get into that, I have a few more like personal questions. So given your large social media presence, how do you handle the pressures and expectations that come with it?
I don't even think about it. I show up, dude. And it's funny because I have an Aura ring that I wear, right, which reports my data. So we're building our own social platform that I intend to make an alternative and an answer to Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, etc. for people interested in this conversation with none of the toxicity. That's my background entrepreneurially. But I'm sharing my Aura scores every single morning with my community. And an Aura ring measures how well you slept, when you went to bed, what your readiness is, your resting heart rate, your HRV, stuff like that. So there's something called the audience effect, where when you share those types of things with people, you perform better. So if people watch you at the gym, you lift more weights, right?
True.
It's obvious.
Definitely.
It's scientific fact. Like they can study people, put people in a room where people are watching them lift weights, and all of a sudden they're like, "Yeah, baby, I'm gonna work out harder." Anyway, I respond to the pressure by stepping up my game and going deeper into my fundamentals. I show up like Kobe in my own way, right? Which is my last meal is 4 hours before I go to bed. I'm doing the cold plunge. I'm doing all the little things that keep me plugged in. I train, in a certain way every single day. But that's how I respond to the pressure. No pressure, no diamonds. Bring it on, and then being worthy of being here with you, dude. Like that's my number one thing. Is am I living my philosophy? Am I actually practicing it, or am I just another dude that's just kind of talking about these ideas? And I'm not perfect, but I'm really committed to showing up day in and day out. And then you have a confidence where it's like, well, dude, I'm doing what I say I'm going to do more often than not, and let's go.
For sure. So you kind of already answered it, but if we can just give a simple answer, because a lot of it they're gonna have to unpack. Like this one of those episodes, I feel like a lot of them are low key, but especially this one, I feel like a lot of notes have to be taken. But in short, why do you think so many of us struggle to navigate life's complexities and challenges and often feel stuck or unfulfilled?
Yeah, I think that the scariest thing for me with the generation that was raised with smartphones and now social media is there's no time for thinking, no time for silence. So if all you do is constantly consume inputs, you literally have no space to create a coherent narrative for your own life and to create a vision for what you want. You're constantly reacting. So I think that's among the reasons. But shows like yours and taking the time to actually think about these ideas and to challenge the cultural stories of how you should live, it's hard work and it requires time unplugged. So swapping out, the 30, 60, 90 minutes, whatever it is a day of, and again, we all waste time, and bring it back. Another one of my favorite teachers is a guy named Michael Bernard Beckwith, who was in The Secret back in the day. He has a church in LA called Agape. He talks about the internet inside your consciousness versus the internet. And you got to turn the internet off in order to tap into your intuition. So every morning I spend time in silence, thinking about these ideas and thinking about who I want to be and recommitting to being that. But that's hard work to pull out of the cultural norms. And the reality is, if we lived in a healthy society, it'd be cool to just do what everybody else is doing. But when 80% of people are anxious and depressed, and close to that are overweight, obese, or struggling with diabetes and cancer, you don't want to be well adjusted to that society. You need to step back and pay attention to what you're talking about, and craft your own story and strategy for creating a great life.
Definitely. Now, another thing, so we're challenging that, and it just kind of goes really right into what you just stated. And the next point was that another challenge is having the wrong people or company. And now, what we already said about social media, we live in a toxic society. That's just what it is. I mean, it is what it is. But even if you say, for instance, you are doing all the right things, you're doing the cold plunge, you're getting up early, you're cutting off drinking or cut it off completely, you aren't just eating a bunch of junk all the time. It's hard. I know this from experience. It's really hard, especially at this age, because I'm 29, to be that person doing it. And it's like most people aren't. And it's like you sometimes get to the point where you're tired of being the front, and I say this respectfully, being the front runner, where it's like I'm the one who, and so many people around you have the potential. You see it, but they're not doing those extra things. Or so many people you see, they start and then they stop. Or, I just got a PS5, but even me, I'm not like, I play games, but I'm like, it's almost like I'm my own parent. Like I'll be like, okay, we play for like an hour or two. But even when I play it, I've done all my work. So it's not like I'm just playing like I'll do the work later. It's kind of like I've already had a schedule of, or some that say, well, you can't play it today, you got work to do. Where I see so many people who they'll play their game day in and day out. And it's like, have you taken care of business today? Have you done this? Have you done that? And that's just not even people I know in general. That's, people that I just see. Now, unless you are one of those people on YouTube who has a gaming channel you get paid for, because that's your job. You didn't turn your passion into a job. But for the ones that have it, it's just like, what are we doing? And it can be hard. And this is for people who are like me, who you feel like, you just need to go about finding like-minded people, because unfortunately, you just may have outgrown people, and not permanently, maybe even just for a season, but you need to get to the point where you need to find people like yourself, and they exist. So what would be your statement, or your, how you say, a comment about what do you think that someone could do to find those like-minded people?
Yeah, first I'll echo your point and say science agrees. So you can change your life by, reading a book or listening to your podcast or whatever. That works, of course. But the faster way to change your life is to join a community of people with high standards. Whether it's the Lakers or the Seals, like you go in that environment, you're like, boom, you're a better person. So intellectually, we need to understand how important that is. Now, we all have relationships that aren't going to go away, that we want to be cool about, and we want to show up, with love and wisdom and all the other things. Yet those are often the hardest, by the way, our families, and they don't want to hear about it, right? So perfect. So leave them alone and just be cool, but be the change. Be the guy that's showing up. We have a woman in our community who lost like 40, 50 pounds, got off all of her diabetes medications. Her friends made fun of her until all of a sudden she's like looking as good as she did in high school. And they're like, what did you do? I want to do what you did. But she didn't tell them, you got to go do all these things. She just was that person. But then, obviously go to places, swap out your 9 p.m. to 2 a.m. Saturday night, bar trip or club trip or whatever, if you're serious about this, for a 9 a.m., whatever, go to CrossFit or go, join a gym or join a community of people. Go get into Spartan races or whatever. Find people who are aligned with these ideas. And again, Izzy, I'm excited to connect on the other side of this, because the people watching your show have more in common with other people watching your show than most people in their life. But where do they connect? And so that's what we're building on a social platform is, all right, well, we need Izzy's group coming together, meeting one another, and then going offline. We're creating offline, heroic local meetups in 1,000 cities in 100 countries around the world of people that want to have this conversation with other people that are cool, that are grounded, that are still ambitious. I have no problem. Again, as much as I threw shade at fame and wealth and hotness, no problem. Just make it secondary. Enjoy it.
Right.
But know that if that's all you care about, good luck. But anyway, community matters. And taking the time to create those relationships and invest in them is super important.
Absolutely. Now, this is according to gotquestions.com. It says we can also develop godly wisdom by carefully selecting those who journey life with us. So this echoes him, me, and now, yeah. So whoever walks with the wise becomes wise, but the companions of fools will suffer harm. Proverbs 13:20. Paul instructed the Corinthians to imitate me as I imitate Christ. And those who want godly wisdom will choose for their heroes those who exhibit wisdom in their personal lives. Again, that's reiterating that.
Dude, I need that quote. Oh, send me that quote. The heroes.
Okay, I will definitely. I'm gonna send it to you afterwards.
Yeah.
Now, here's the thing, because people take words too literal and don't understand. Like, he likes to dissect words. I'm a wordsmith myself. And so harm, we think somebody's punching me. No, harm is also you're not living to your full potential. It's harming the pathway that you were created to do. You are derailed. You are distracted. You are delayed. You know what I'm saying? So you were supposed, now, of course, I know for a fact God can redeem the time, but at the same time, you might have been supposed to be somewhere 5 years ago. I think about that commercial, the commercial for, was it ICDC college back in the day? You're sitting on your couch, wasting your time, and he was real aggressive and he was yelling at you and people got offended, but some people need that. And I want to find that clip. I'm going to put it in this episode. I'm going to find it. Now, when we hear the phrase, because we're still in the challenge section, because I hear, we hear the phrase sometimes, don't be a hero. We hear it in superhero movies. We hear it just in real life. And we on the topic of relationships. So when I hear the phrase, don't be a hero, my mind gets to thinking. And I think about times with like friends or family where maybe because you can't save everybody. That's just the hero logic in general. Like you mentioned the lady earlier who talked about, she lost the weight and she didn't. And the friends were making jokes, which happened to me. Friends were making jokes, and they looked up and like, "Oh, you lost weight? Like, what happened? What did you do?" Didn't tell anybody. Didn't make no social media posts. Just did it. And don't be a hero to me means you can't save them. You have to, because everyone just can't receive it. And also too, I have one friend. People noticed I was losing weight, and I got a one homeboy. He's like a gym head, and he's like, "Okay, I noticed the weight loss." And I have another friend who isn't, and he made a comment like, well, "Why don't you take him with you?" I said, I can't make him do anything. So in that case, that's me not being a hero, because I can't save him. He doesn't want it. He's not going to work. I'm wasting my time, and he is trying to save his life. And so my question to you is, what happens, or your interpretation of what happens when you have those people, you have those friends, close family,
Yep.
where you say, I just kind of got to let them be. How do you go about navigating that?
Yeah, so then I would differentiate hero and rescuer. So there's a model I talk about in the book again, where there's a victim orientation and then a creator orientation. So when I'm in a victim mindset, I want to rescue other people who I think need my rescuing, and then I persecute them when they upset me, blah, blah, blah. And everybody's playing, a lot of people are playing in that. So I got to rescue you, right? But the reality is that you can't do, as Jim Rohn said, Tony Robbins' mentor, you can't do anybody else's push-ups. They may or may not want to do it. Mm-hmm. Now, if they want you to challenge them or coach them, then do it. But there's a difference between rescuing and coaching, right? So if I'm gonna be the one to swoop in as a quote hero, but I would call it rescuer, and make your life better, because your life sucks and it's going to suck unless I'm the guy that comes in and saves you. Well, yeah, then you're going to be that guy that no one wants to be around, to put it bluntly. What I'm suggesting is, if you think they're open, ask them, dude, I'm so on fire right now. Like, do you want to do some stuff together? Would you even be open to my coaching? But even that's a silly thing to say. If you're just losing weight and you're just figuring things out, just focus on yourself. You got enough work to do with you, and go be the change, as Gandhi said, that you want to see. And then what happens? And again, I've trained 10,000 coaches in our heroic coach certification program from 100 countries. I tell them, quit coaching. Go be a radiant exemplar. So when you walk in the room, people feel you and they ask you, what are you doing? Because you're the guy with moral charisma, or what Gandhi called soul force. Martin Luther King quoted Gandhi in his I Have a Dream speech.
Yeah.
His main thing that he wanted to cultivate was soul force, the incredible power of being connected to your best self. When you are that guy, neuroscience says people lean in. They're asking you now. Rather than telling you to shut up, they're saying, dude, what are you doing? How are you doing it? So that's how we coach our coaches is start with client number 0. It's going to keep you busy. That person in the mirror will keep you busy long enough. And then people will lean in rather than lean away. That's how I approach it. But again, I like the distinction between hero and rescuer. And then you're just doing your job. You're just showing up. And it's crazy, dude, what happens. People start coming out and saying, well, how did you do that? That's really inspiring. Then you have the humility to say, thanks for asking. I struggled too. I was there. And this is what I did. Maybe this would work for you. And let's go. How about we go hit the gym, or we go on a run together, or we sign up for a 5K together, or whatever it is that might be appropriate.
Definitely. Good stuff. Good stuff. All right. Now let's move into the next segment, which is the weekly sabbatical. And in this case, this is our time to kind of reflect and look back on some things. So before I get into some things, first, your YouTube channel and podcast have amassed millions of views and downloads. Congratulations on that. How do you ensure that your content remains genuine, especially when addressing topics that can be a little more intense like yours?
Yeah, dude, I talk about my own challenges, as a man, as a husband, as a father. And I'm constantly doing the work. And then I'm writing, I have a number of people in mind, in my community that I know I've served, from super elite performers to people that wanted to end their own lives. I literally have pictures of them up in my studio when I'm creating. I'm thinking of them, and I'm thinking of the old me, and this book, like, I wrote it for me 25 years ago. This book didn't exist, but then sharing my challenges, and having humility, dude, and just trying to show up and be better today is my big thing. And then I write what I feel inspired by, that I'm committed to practicing. I'm super transparent with my own challenges. At least I try to be. And then, like you, not that I try to be funny, but I try to be quick. People are busy. So I try to get in and I try to get out, which is the book. As you know, there's tiny little micro chapters. It's 2 pages each. Get in, get out, and try to serve. Try to make it about them. I'm not trying to preen and look a certain way. Obviously, I train to, quote, look a certain way, but I'm not trying to impress you with anything polished. I'm trying to show up authentically, humbly, yet also intensely, and push you, as hard as I'm pushing myself. And then we can all go have fun together, seeing if we can close that gap,
Definitely. Now, as always, as we getting towards the end of the episode, I always try to give tips for the people as far as things we talk about. In this case, it was making a decision to activate that heroic potential. So what better way to discuss that than to go off of the 7 objectives to activate your true hero potential based on your book. So I'm going to name the 7, go down the list, and then because I want y'all to read the book, he's going to give like a brief summary of it, but just to kind of, so that you can know, one, to go get it, but also kind of get your head going in the right direction. So the first one is, what is know the ultimate game?
So we talked about it. The journey of 1,000 miles begins with the first step. But if your first step's in the wrong direction, the further and faster you go, the further away you get from where you want to be. So remember, being your best self, living with virtue, deepening relationships, making a contribution, that's the ultimate game. That's what leads to the happiness you want. And by the way, the success you want in all the other smaller games.
Forge anti-fragile confidence.
Yes, we had a great chat about that. You got to go from being fragile, life is hard, oh no, I break, to being anti-fragile. Life is hard, I double down, I get stronger. You build confidence, which means intense trust, by doing the things you say you will do. Again, I go off in the book, obviously, on how to go about doing that.
Optimize your big 3.
Big three. So if you want to simplify all this, it's easy to get overwhelmed. Focus on three things: energy, work, and love. Get yourself in the best physical shape you possibly can. Bring that to your work and then bring that to your relationships. We call that the big three. Again, we talk about how to go about operationalizing that: energy, work, and love.
Make today a masterpiece.
Make today a masterpiece, baby. It's easy to write down New Year's resolutions, then forget about them for 364 days. Our big thing is no. Today's the day to move from theory to practice, especially after you have a bad day. Wake up, recommit, make today a masterpiece. We talk about how to do that in terms of what goes where. We talked about it a little bit last night, drove, this morning and all the other things, but that's the fourth objective.
Master yourself.
Dude, that and anti-fragile confidence are my favorite. So I'm all about the art and science of behavioral change, installing and deleting habits. So the big idea here is that if you failed in the past, and we all have, and I continue to, at changing your life and behaviors, you may think it's because of you and a character flaw, but it's not. It's a design flaw. BJ Fogg, the leading thinker, says, you just haven't figured out how to do it. If you learned how to play the game well, you can play it at a much higher level. I playfully talk about laser tag, and I sucked at it when I went with my son. When I knew how to play, all of a sudden I had a lot more fun. So you got to know how to change, install, and delete habits. And that's the focus of that objective, which is tied for first is my favorite.
So you was once you learn how to play, was you being that adult in the kids game? You was just dominating all the kids.
No, this is like adults. It's like
Okay.
it's the biggest laser tag place apparently in Texas, maybe even the country, man. This is like they're all in.
That's funny. All right, the sixth one: dominate the fundamentals, which we talked about with Kobe.
Yeah, but eating, moving, sleeping, breathing, focusing your mind. If you want to see how tall a building is going to be, look at how deeply they're digging the foundation. You think Kobe, Jordan, fill in the blank on your Tom Brady, they're just born great. Brady's perfect. He sucked. He was a second string quarterback in college, but the dude dominated the fundamentals. So you got to identify your fundamentals and then go off on them. And you also got to know your psychology is driven by your physiology more than you think. Your gut produces 80 to 90% of your body's serotonin. All that sugar you're eating, all that refined processed food you're eating is destroying your psychology and your confidence. So dominating the fundamentals, eating, moving, sleeping, is insanely important.
All right, and then the last one: activate your superpower.
Let's go. This is Soul Force. Gandhi named it. Martin Luther King, as we talked about it. But who are your favorite heroes, Izzy? When you think about your favorite heroes, who are they?
Wow, didn't they plan on that question? So fictionally, Batman, but in real life, my favorite heroes. That's a good question. I have so many people I look up to, so I'm trying to think who's somebody I really just. I can't really call them a hero because some people I take inspiration from. So hero wise, I would have to say, besides the fiction one, who in real life I could say is a hero. I'm honest. I have to think about that because I don't never really just deem someone a hero. I just kind of, like I said, I was like I'm inspired by a lot of different things.
Yeah, no, perfect. So then one of the exercises I have people do is to imagine two of their favorite heroes, right? So for me, for example, I've got Gandhi and Churchill on my wall. I've got a bunch of others up there too. But the reason why it's important, anyone listening, think about your two favorite heroes and then put yourself up there with them, your most heroic self. But all heroes have one thing in common, which is a felt sense of what Gandhi called soul force. Martin Luther King had it. Gandhi had it. Aurelius had it. Winston Churchill had it. Gandhi had it. We all have it. It's a felt sense when you're in someone's presence who is living in integrity with their highest ideals that you feel, you lean into. Activating that is, to me, what life is all about. And that's how we're going to change the world. And we all have it latent within us is the most important point here. So each of us have it within us. We just need to move through what Phil Stutz calls the fear and the laziness that gets in the way and activate it. And of course, that's what the book is about. My life's work is about. And dude, knowing who your heroes are and what qualities they embody is a really powerful practice. Why I have my heroes on my wall is they're barking at me all day. They're showing me that if they can do it, I can do it. But they're also challenging me and saying, yeah, and I worked hard. I showed up powerfully. And they talk, I meditate at least for 11 minutes every morning. And I ask them what I should be thinking about. Every single morning, they're giving me marching orders, just a single sentence. It's super powerful. But you have within you the qualities you admire in those heroes. And that's the most important part, frankly, from my perspective, of our entire chat. We just need to do the work to activate it.
All right, good stuff. So before we move to the final segment, I just want to ask for the listeners who were where can they learn more about you? Of course, the book and of course your website and things will be placed in the description boxes on everywhere. But besides that, what would be that? Along with that, what would be your advice to someone who was struggling with their mental health journey as of today?
Yeah, so then the book, Arete, briefly, Arete. You can check that out, Amazon, everywhere you get books, obviously, or heroic.us is the website. Check out Heroic in iOS, Android, the training platform for more. Yeah, so then the number one thing I would encourage people to think about is to deal with their mental illness or challenges or whatever is, here's the exercise. So pick out a piece of paper, pull out a piece of paper, draw a line down the middle, and on the left, at the top, put do, and on the right, put don't. And think about a time in your life when you were at your best. And we've all experienced that, whether it was a day, a week, a month, or a year, or whatever. What did you do when you were at your best? And what did you not do when you were at your best? And then think about the number one thing that you could start doing right now that you know would change your life. Circle it on your little list. And then think about the thing you know you need to stop doing. And we've all got kryptonites, is what I call them, to go to Superman on it, right? We've all got those little kryptonites. But what's the thing you could stop doing that if you stop doing it, whether it was drinking or this or that would most change your life? And then you start taking control back of your life. You control the controllables. I'm going to start doing this, however imperfectly, and I'm going to stop doing that, however imperfectly. And perhaps I'm going to listen to more of Izzy's shows or read my book or anybody else's books. And take those next steps. But that's my number one tip. The number one start, the number one stop. And I should say that stopping the things that are destroying your life is the fastest way to change your life. It's not starting things, it's stopping things. If you're doing things that are just destroying, your energy or your productivity or your connection, you owe it to yourself to think about how you can stop doing that and chip away at it. And again, we've all got it. No shame. It is what it is. But today's the day to step up and try our best. And when we fall short, get back up, try again.
All right, good stuff. All right, let's move into the final segment for the day, which is game time. This game time is called Hero or Zero. All right. So I'm going to name a few scenarios that depict a hero, someone harnessing the potential and positively impacting their mental health, and then a zero, someone not addressing challenges effectively. And you have to decide whether or not this is a heroic action or zero action. So, all right, you ready?
Is this me or is this everybody listening?
No, this you.
Oh, let's go. Okay, cool. Yeah.
All right. So, John, a millennial, often feels overwhelmed by his job's expectations. Instead of confronting these feelings, he spends more hours aimlessly browsing social media and comparing his lives to others.
He's a hero in training. Perfect. We've all been there. Now what needs to get done? So John needs to think about, what do you want? I call it targeted thinking. What do you want? Set a target. I want a more meaningful, joyful life. Perfect. What do you need to do? Is the thing you're doing right now helping you get that or not? But the most beautiful act is to go from zero to hero. We're all zeros at times, but we're all heroes at times too. You just need to more consistently make that shift. So John's a hero in training. He's just waiting to activate his potential, making a few more better decisions, right?
All right. After a challenging week, David decides to join a local community workshop on photography, a long lost passion of his. He believes that it might help him feel more connected and reignite his creativity.
Let's go, hero. We'll model you.
Mike, faced with existential dread of purposelessness, starts to pin down his personal goals, values, and everything he's passionate about, leading him to volunteer at a local animal shelter.
Dude, let's go. That's exactly how it's done. And then again, you take that obstacle and you use it as fuel. Huge idea in the ancient Stoics. Alchemize it. Use it as fuel for your growth.
Alex feels lonely and disconnected from his friends. Rather than reach out, he internalizes his feelings, believing that real men shouldn't express themselves and be vulnerable.
Yeah, we know better, Alex. Let's go. Come on.
All right, last one. Despite facing financial troubles after losing his job, Tom avoids discussing his fears and anxieties with his girlfriend, choosing instead to bury himself in online games and isolate himself.
Yep. How's that working for you? What do you want? What do you need to do? And dude, we're all gonna face those challenges. What do you want? What do you need to do? Is the thing you're doing right now helping you get what you want? That's what I told my son in the early chapters. He wanted to avoid going to a chess tournament. But dude, you want to be a grandmaster. What do you got to do if you want to be there? You got to go to tournaments where you know you're going to lose games. Perfect. So pay attention to the voice in your head. See if it's helping you get what you want, and then make better decisions. But again, embrace the fact that we're all imperfect. We all go through that. And every moment is an opportunity to step forward and just get a little bit stronger, a little bit better day in and day out.
You know, this is my last thing I'm gonna say. But people hate the question. People hate that I've learned is that working? And they get so mad because you're literally asking them. You're basically telling them that's not working, or where are you getting with that? How far is that getting you? And they hate that question. They get so defensive, and like you can just see them just like turn up, not in a good way. And it's just crazy how that works every time. All right, so good job, good job. All right,
I
now
can,
so
I can throw it out in the abstract. You know what I mean? Oh, that guy. When we can all look at it and go, is that working for him? No.
yeah.
When you do it personally, you better ask before that. Would you like any coaching? But otherwise, yeah. Anyway, go on. You're going.
All right. So, as always, question and challenge for the week for the audience based on everything presented. What are some ways in which you plan to unlock your heroic potential this week? There's a lot of stuff here to go that we went through. So, a lot of personal examples. We went out. What I like this was perfect conversation. We went real high, then we went down low. So it was real simple stuff. Same thing, just two different ways to understand it and unpack it for those who can't always get the high end stuff. So anyway, that's great conversation. Anything else you would like to say before we leave today?
Just thank you, man. I really, really enjoyed our chat. I admire you and what you're doing and just such important work. So keep up the great work. Thanks for having me on. And as I like to say, day one, all in, let's go.
All right. Thank you for the book again. And like I said, this is definitely my November read. So I'll be excited to send back to the team what I thought of it and anything I definitely picked out. I will be discussing probably either on the vlog or the podcast. I haven't decided somewhere. So stay tuned for that. All right, y'all. It's been a great episode. God stuff to unpack. So make sure y'all tune in and get a notebook. All right. As always, PSA signing out. Always remember, keep your head up like your neck hurts. Remember who you are. Make your mind up. Don't let it make you. And I love us for real.